Hello everyone. Today we're going to learn how to troubleshoot Inform Voice. Before we can troubleshoot, we need to understand how the product is built. Inform Voice is built on processes or modules. Each process has a specific function within Inform Voice, and processes interact with each other inside the Inform Voice application. I took this slide from a presentation of the bigger brother of the Inform Voice SMB, which is the Windows version. Windows version runs a little more processes than the SMB version, but in the future, SMB version might be enhanced and those processes will be added. So this slide is still relevant. Let me describe few of the modules so you have an idea how do we approach troubleshooting with them. You can see on the top there are databases, which are the databases that the system is handling. Here on the right you will see the primary config database where basically the configuration information is stored. So there is a process that writes and writes to that database, which is the database manager. So if we have issues with the database, we might need to take a look at this process. Inform Voice has users. Users need to authenticate to the system, especially when we are dealing with client applications like the UC client or the mobile client. So we have a process called user services, and if there is a authentication issue, we will probably need to take a look at the user process to see what's going on. Inform Voice supports voice services like auto attendant. So if we have an auto attendant issue, we need to take a look at the process that handles all those features, which is the media server. And finally, the process that we will mostly deal with is the call manager, the Media Gateway Controller, or MGC. This is the SIP engine. So whenever we have a call issue that has to do with SIP, we will need to take a look at this process to see what's going on. Speaking about SIP, we need to become familiar with the SIP call flows. The one depicted here is a very simple call flow of a basic call between two devices. SIP has messages like invite, ACK, buy, and has replies like this 401 unauthorized, or the 100 trying, or the 200 okay. So we need to become familiar with those. And of course, when we have a transfer or a hold, a call hold, the flow will change and we need to know how is it changing. There is also another element within a SIP, which is the session description protocol, the SDP. That is the section of the SIP message that describes the codec that will be used, the IP addresses and ports involved in sending the media. So we need also to understand the meaning of that particular piece of the SIP message. So let's take a look at our system and let's dig a little bit more into what we were describing. We might need to start or stop or restart individual processes within Inform Voice. In order to do that, we need to access the Ubuntu server, which I have done here using remote desktop. I already opened the terminal application within, so I can show you how to look at the processes and handle them. The location of the utility that allows us to handle those processes is in opt/IFV. So in order to get there, we type cd, change directory, space, /opt/IFV. And here we are. We need to run a utility called run IFV. First, we need to type // and the R has to be uppercase because Linux is case sensitive. If we just run the application as it is, it will give us a little help of what we are able to do. We can, for example, look at the processes with -ps, and you can see if the process is running and the name of the process. Let's get back and look what else can we do. We can check the version with -ver. This is especially useful when you need to report an issue to our support group. And also you can start, stop, or restart any of those processes. And you can see here the names, which are already familiar because I described them to you. DB server handles the database. MGC handles the zip engine. Media server handles auto attendant features, for example. User process handles user authentication, etc. So now that we learned how to start, stop, and restart the process if we need to, we can take a look at how do we debug issues here. Each of the process creates its own log file within the system. So in order for us to debug something, we need to take a look at the log file. The log file is in a specific place on the Linux server, but we can access the folder through a share, so from Windows. So we don't need to handle Ubuntu Linux directly at this point. Now let's describe a little bit more in detail how do we get to those log files. If you look at the start menu and we open up the Inform Voice section, you will see certain items here, which are the different processes. Let's take a look at the MGC process. You can see we have a trace window that is constantly moving as the system is creating entries. We have a trace control section here that allows us to control the debug level. The default debug level is 2, and I suggest you to leave level 2 for normal operation. But if you discover there is an issue somewhere, you might want to temporarily up the level to 3 so we can see a little more detail of what's going on. The logging can be enabled or disabled. Obviously, the idea is to keep it enabled. And it also We can also have a control of how many files are being created, what's the maximum file size before a new file is created, and how long do we take to purge older files. In particular, the MGC is interesting because it has a terminals tab that shows us which are the devices that are currently registered to the media gateway controller. As of now, we have two trunk ports here. We have the music on hold, and we have a media server feature because we have auto attendant implemented. If you remember, media server handles 256 ports, so you will see 256 ports here. Okay, so I upped a little bit the log level of the MGC because I'm going to show you a few things that happen on MGC. So let's start with this. I have a phone, actually a cell phone, that I want to try to register to the MGC, and I cannot register it because if you can see, there is something here that says incorrect password, which is a little misleading on the phone side, but bottom line, we cannot register. So let's look at the MGC log to see what's going on here. So I will open up Explorer, go to my share, open up Spherical, and you will see this application logs folder. Each process has its own folder, so we'll take a look at the MGC folder. The every process while it's running creates a new log file from time to time, and the log files are numbered. The first log file is the number 1, which is when the process first starts. Sometimes it's necessary for us to see what happens on the file number 1 because it's initializing items that are never been initialized before. So in the file 14, we won't see what's happening. So our support people sometimes ask us for the number 1 file as well as the current log file. So let's open up the log file. I suggest to use Notepad++. It's a very good editor, but it has good search capabilities. That's what we are looking for. So I'm going to try to find something that's relevant to the station I'm trying to register. So I know that my station is the number 2002. This is the way I define it. So I will take a look and do a find all in this document to see how can I find something. Okay, here I can see there is a from 2002. Let's open it up. And let's see. So there is a register message being received. Okay. So, okay, the system is trying to register. Okay. It's a microsip. Yes, that's my application. So let's see how Inform Voice understands all. So it takes a look. It received the register message, says, and it says register was received. Sometimes you will see the SIP message twice because I enabled level 3, so I have the same SIP message again. And by the way, you can see the log contains the SIP messages, so sometimes we don't even need to do packet captures. And you will see here that it says fail to process register. UA enabled no. What does this mean? Well, it means that we haven't declared microSIP as a valid user agent. That was my mistake. So now I can go to the IFV administrator. Let's minimize this so you can see it much better. I go to IFV administrator. I go to the SIP tab, and I will add microSIP as a user agent. I need to tell it's a station, so I can apply. So now, if I try to register, okay, now it changed. Now it says it's temporarily unavailable. That's good because now I can refresh here and I will see there is a new hub created. Why? Because I don't have the station created yet. So it accepted the registration, but it's not online. So I have to complete the registration. So I have to create an extension for it, which I already did before. I want to assign the zone, which happened to be Orlando. I will change the hub number, set to 202, and I will give user rights to the user of this extension, which is Abrams, Jeff Abrams, to give them full. And at this point, luckily, we will be able to go back to the account. And here you can see, now it's online. We can complete here the name here. There we go. Yeah, here you have it. Now that's online, I will try to call the pilot number of the auto attendant in Orlando because this phone belongs to Orlando. I want to call, and oops, it didn't like it. It says incorrect dialing or non-existent number. What happened? So 5002 does exist? Yes, it does exist. I hear it here. So what's going on? Well, let's take a look at the log. In this case, as I made a call, I will use a search parameter called make call, and I will find it. And now you can see there is an entry called make call, and there is a call ID. This call ID is called sphere ID, and we can search using the find utility of Notepad, and I can find all the instances of that call ID, and I can go pretty much through the call. And one of the things I can look for is what's happening when InfoVoice is trying to find 5002. So it's looking here for 5002. It says searching for Zone Orlando address 5002. Well, okay, so I'm looking for 5002 in the zone Orlando. Why? Zone Orlando is the zone I defined for the station 2002. Okay, so let's go back to my system and see what happens with 5002. 5002 does belong to the Orlando zone. Yes, it does belong to the Orlando zone. So why is it being denied? Well, if you remember, we have only one location. Even if we have multiple cities, the server is in one place. And the media server, which is the device that handles the auto attendant, is located in the zone Chicago. So it's a different zone. Well, so how do I know if the zone Orlando trusts the zone Chicago to be able to look for devices in a different zone than its own? Oh, let's take a look. Let's take a look at the zone. Let's take a look at Orlando. Let's look at the Trusted Zones tab. And oops, there is no Chicago here. Orlando is trusting Las Vegas, but it's not trusting Chicago. So this is why when the system is searching for 5002, it doesn't find it because it's looking only at Orlando zone. So I will add Chicago. And now let's see what happens.
Welcome to the music store. Our operating hours are from Monday.
Okay, we got it. That was the issue. So as you can see, the MGC log kind of gave us a hint of where do we need to look at. Debugging and troubleshooting in from voice is a matter of experience. It's a matter of taking a look at logs and logs and logs until you become more and more familiar with them. But I wanted to show you the general process of looking at the log, thinking through it, and I'm confident that you will be successful troubleshooting inform voice. With that, I thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.